So you want to mask off a section of card before you start your gel printing, and it has to be a quite secure masking because you're going to be doing quite a few rounds of printing and doing some different techniques. But you don't have any masking film, you know, that adhesive film. So what do? Well, you know, DIY it, of course, and I have a really simple, secure masking technique that you can use in your mixed media projects, like this gel printed cards with a difference. And whilst we are at it, I also have some tips on how to take a messy in inverted commas, because we don't want to judge here, but a print that's very busy and turn it into a finished project. So let's get straight into the secure DIY mask. So for this you are going to need a few more things. So we're going to need some paper, and it can be just the ordinary printer paper. You'll also need a washi tape or a masking tape, whichever your favourite is to use, and of course some scissors as well. Now start by cutting out a rough shape of the area that you want to leave clean from your paper, and you're going to want to cut it slightly smaller than the final masked space is going to be. And then, once you've done that, add your washi tape or your masking tape all around the edge of the paper shape. And just make sure that you've got some of that tape overhanging the shape. And you're also going to want to fill in the holes that might be visible once you've done this, so, you know, look out for the corners especially. And once you've done that, you can cut around the tape using the original paper shape as a guide, so that you can now recreate that masking shape that you wanted. Pretty simple. So let's stick it down in place and give it a go and see how it works. Now my last two double-sided cards have had the inside and the outside designs matching, and there's been repeated common themes sort of going from the inside to the out or the outside to the in, so that they kind of came together as one piece. But I'm going to ditch that this week and I'm going to show you how to do a different design both on the inside and the outside, but finish it so they look like they're meant to be together on the same card. So yep, it's back out with the paper masks again, and you know, they're just so versatile. And let's start on the inside of this card and see how that alternative mask holds up. So I think we'll start with some warm colours and a kind of geometric theme for this one. It's going to take a few layers to build up here, so I'm still sticking to that thin paint tip that I shared in the very first video in this series of 3. Now all the way along for these cards that I've been sharing with you, I haven't been that bothered that my card is very slightly shorter than the plate. And you might have seen it, I'll pull the print and there's like a jagged white border still on the card. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It all kind of adds texture, and if you haven't got one of these bigger plates, don't let that put you off if your card is bigger than the plate that you've got, because you can always do your printing in overlapping sections to cover that card, and it's just a really handy technique. And don't worry either if you miss sections where the cardstock shows through, it just adds a lot of interest. And I use this particular technique to add contrast to specific areas on my card, so you can see how handy it is. Now I'm going to keep a lot of white on the inside of the card, so it's kind of already done I think at this point. And I'm going to pick up some of the leftover paint on my plate with the other side of the card. But I want a few distressed layers now for this side, for the outside of the card. So I'm going to build up these layers by just pressing this side into wet paint that's still left on the plate after I've taken a print for something else, for one of the other cards. And hopefully there'll be enough wet paint still on the plate to be able to pick it up. And I'll kind of just keep repeating this until I'm happy with the layers. And if there isn't enough wet paint to keep on building up this distressed layer thing, then you can always add a thin layer of paint to help. So you can get some even more distressed texture and contrast by adding some paper shapes in again to the plate that's already covered with the leftover paint, and add a light colour, and this will help me remove some more of that distressed paint texture. Okay, I think we have quite a nice mess going on here with a nice busy print, but I want some more. So I'm going to add a contrasting colour to really set it off. And I'm going to put it in strips across the card. I especially want the ends of my card now to have a bit more colour on them, but I don't want it to cover the whole of the plate and all of that white space that's on there. So I'm going to mask off some strips, and I'm going to use the actual card itself to guide where I put these strips on my plate. So hopefully this new layer of wet paint will also do that trick where it will help pick up some of the paint that's dried on the plate. And yep, even busier and messier, so perfect. But you might be tempted to chuck these types of prints, or, chop them up into smaller pieces to use in other projects. But next time you have one of these really busy prints and you're tempted to do that, chop it or chuck it out, have a go with this technique. Okay, so to do this, I have now cleaned the plate. So get rid as much of that leftover paint that has been collecting from all the printing. And I'm going to line up the card with the gel plate, but this time I really need to make sure that I know exactly which way up my card is, so that I can now place that paper mask shape exactly where I want it. So for instance, I want a circle shape in the top half on the front of my card, and I want that to be masked out. So once I've worked out on the card where that actually is, I can work out where it should be placed on the plate to get that effect. And once I have my shapes in the right place, I can add a slightly thicker layer of an opaque colour so that I can print a stripe on the back and on the front of the card as well. So that's what I'm going for with this. And we can still see a lot of busy texture, but we haven't lost it all. But what we've done is added the beginning of a focal point, something that's going to bring it together. And there are different ways that you can do this, so you don't have to do it exactly like I've done it. And what you could do is you could add more stripes and strips of colour, or you could forget about the strips completely and just use the shapes instead and block out some larger shapes to bring this type of complex print together without just covering it all up or cutting it up or chucking it out. Now I'm adding some painted mark making, which I've been having a lot of fun with recently, as a lot of you know. And then I'm going to add the trick that will bring the inside of the card and the outside of the card together. Because remember, they're quite different and we've gone for very different designs. So once I've added those painted marks, I'm going to bring out the pen and start some black line doodling, which is, yes, an old favourite here on the channel. And to do this, I'm going to use a brush pen. So this is actually a fine line marker, but has a brush tip. And you'll find it with everything else down in the description. But you could always use paint pens if you prefer. And also, it doesn't have to be black. You can change up the colour as well. But whatever you choose, take it inside as well and add some similar but not the same doodles to the inside of the card to bring it all together and make it look nice and cohesive. Right, so how did the DIY washi tape and paper mask go? Pretty perfect. And I might even save this and see if I can get a couple of runs out of it. So 3 cards, lots of inspiration, lots of tips and tricks. Let me know which of these cards is your favourite. I always love to hear when I have these multiple projects to share, so do leave me a comment. And don't forget to catch up with the other 2 cards if you've missed them, and the links are below. Now, I've got plenty more ideas for your next mixed media projects in these videos here, so watch them next and I'll see you there.